You know what? So Monkey Butt got a buddy, and normally when she gets a plush toy, it gets absolutely destroyed in like 15 minutes. But she seems to be like taking care of it like a little friend. Is this your little buddy? Yeah, is that your little buddy? You want to play with buddy? There you go. Yeah. She just kind of nibbles on him rather than tearing his ears and eyeballs out. It's absolutely fascinating. Or her, I'm not sure. It's a boy or girl. I don't know. It doesn't matter because it's delicious. Yes. Oh, nom, 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 nom. Okay, so what you're actually here for is one of these. Woohoo! All right. So we're pinch late on getting the show started. Sorry. Took a shower, got myself all cleaned up and ready for the world. It's Saturday. We normally don't do shows on Saturday, so it's a special one because last night I just was so tired I could not bring myself to do a show. But let's see here. Right off the bat, I don't have anything specific to talk about. I mean, so since we last chatted, Russia shelled and rocketed a nuclear power plant and now controls it after killing a bunch of firefighters and stuff. So that's pretty awful. Russia announced a ceasefire to allow citizens out of a couple of cities in the south, and then 15 minutes later began shooting those citizens, so they violated the ceasefire. Brittany Griner, American basketball star, like the 6'8" girl from Baylor, who is just an absolute dynamo, was playing in the Russian leagues, and she's been arrested on charges of drug smuggling, apparently marijuana vape cartridges. I'm going to say right now, that didn't happen. There's no way, 6'8" queer woman is going to try and do drug deals in Russia when she's a fairly wealthy basketball star. I'm with 100% certainty in my heart, these are trumped up charges in order to have a high profile hostage during these situations. And I think that's exactly what Putin is doing. You get trumped up charges against someone like that, you can hold them, and basically, gun to the head, America, you can't do anything. You don't help Ukraine, or else she's dead or going to a gulag or whatever. So I think that's exactly what's happening there. What else is in the news, Monkey? Go Get It Got's new survey is out, which has American retail GME ownership somewhere around the 830 million share level, which is consistent with what I've been saying since summer, that there's probably about 1.4 billion shares outstanding that are, 2,825% of those are naked or synthetic. What else I got? That's about it. I think that's what I've got for news off the top. Oh, dedicating this show to Grandpa Barney. He's going through a rough patch. He's at hospice with his mom, who's on her way out, and so my heart goes out to him, and I wish him well, and so that's a rough spot for someone to be in. So let's keep him in his thoughts, keep him in our thoughts, and give him a big old mental hug. Okay. Cameron Mirza, insane in the membrane is that Vlad senile. Where's the quarter? It's really interesting to try and parse and project. Oh, there it goes. She's destroying it now. Yep, de-threading. Likes to de-thread one at a time. It's really interesting to try and figure out how Putin's brain is operating, because he's doing the greatest hits, right? So his reason for invading Georgia in 2008 was because of the breakaway region of South Ossetia, which is tiny. It's like 50,000 people. So he's like, hey, South Ossetia gets to have its independence and be independent, so we're going to have to invade Georgia and just bomb it to shit. So they released this document that said we're going as peacekeepers, and really was just to slaughter as many Georgians as possible. And then he did the exact same thing here, where he said, we're going to recognize these two regions in eastern Ukraine as independent, and we're going to go in as peacekeepers to ensure the peace, which was total bullshit. It was used as an excuse to invade. The document he released for that is the exact same document, word for word, that he did for his invasion of invasion of Georgia. He just swapped out Ukraine for Georgia and Donbass for South Ossetia. It's pretty incredible. But I think one of the biggest problems is, like, while Putin is incredibly smart, definitely a megalomaniac sociopath, early on in his career, he still had oligarchs and generals and advisors around him who would be like, okay, this is probably a good idea to do this, probably not that, and he could take advice from folks. Now he seems incredibly isolated. He has, had anyone who opposed him, who pissed him off, who, was in the way, told him no. He just had them all killed or thrown out of windows or sent to gulags or poisoned or whatever. And so now he has like a purely distilled group of yes men who don't know how to tell Putin that was probably a bad idea. And so they're very ineffectual. But for having their positions, they're rewarded with piles of money and power and everything else so that people below them, they can be like, you do what I say. Which has resulted in a military that's completely degraded. There's no maintenance of their machinery. So they've got things like $5 million tanks with treads falling off and no fuel supply and cheap tires on $15 million anti-aircraft trucks that are just falling apart, or the hubs have dry rot and are leaking all of the grease, and it's just breaking down. And it's because there was no alpha. There was no one who was the captain of the ship in charge of the military to be like, you two, your job is to rotate these tires. Your job is to check these seals. Your job is to keep this stuff out of the sunshine from dry rotting. And so they've got this 30-year-old military that's just falling apart because there was no maintenance done on these incredibly expensive machines. I mean, you may as well just blow them all up, because all you're going to end up doing is giving them to the enemy, and the enemy has to go, oh, this needs a new seal, new ball bearings, and it's good to go. Now we've got a $15 million anti-aircraft gun. It's very fascinating to see. Like, you can have all these numbers, but if you don't do the little things, you don't sand off the rust and refill the oil and do all the little things, then you may as well have just burned all the money you spent building that machinery. It's really incredible to see. Just abandoned $4 million T-90 tanks, $5 million T-72s, just mind-boggling because they have no support, and the maintenance was awful. I will forever just be amazed. Like, there's a lot of people who work in the military whose jobs, like in the U.S. military or British or French or whatever, whose jobs probably seem extremely mundane, monotonous, boring, and their job is to go to this like light tactical vehicle and go drive it around for 10 miles and then park it facing an opposite direction so that it gets even sunshine on the wheels and the tires are basically rolled around so they don't get dry rot in one spot. And their job probably seems completely lame. They're like, oh, I joined the army to see the world. All I do is like back up into a different parking spot all the time. But what you're seeing is the benefit of doing that, because all of a sudden you aren't going to lose a $500,000 truck out in the desert somewhere because somebody didn't check the tire pressure or the lines that went to the air system or whatever. It's so any pencil pusher in the armed forces is looking at this entire invasion going, this is exactly why we do that, folks. And it's really phenomenal. I'm in awe of the absolute lack of maintenance of these really expensive machines. Which makes you wonder, like, Putin's threatening nuclear apocalypse, right? Well, how many O-ring seals on 50-year-old ICBMs are completely dry rotted so that when they flip that switch to do an ignition, the whole thing just explodes in the silo? It's going to be... If they aren't willing to check the seals of a wheel hub, they're definitely not checking the seals on a really crazy jet engine that was designed 50 years ago. A rocket engine. It's it's crazy. Okay, sorry. I'm totally just my brain is wandering, and that's just what it does. All right. So, Iggy Limon. Will Citadel use crypto to smurf in on shore? Citadel use crypto to smurf in onshore. I'm not sure what smurf in means. Oh, offshore. Sorry. Are you talking about smuggling offshore? Definitely. Crypto is one of those ways to smuggle offshore. I have a buddy who so years ago I wrote an article about how to use gems to launder money. And are you done with your toy? Is it all done now? Okay. And then I met a guy who was, back in the day, worked for one of the cartels. He was a mercenary, whatnot. And he was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, the idea I came up with was you take all this drug money and you buy a bunch of diamonds with it, and then we would just bedazzle a pair of child's jeans, made them look like some Ed Hardy jeans, and they were a birthday present. And that's how you just mailed them across the border. You mailed like $30 million in gemstones across the border. And I was like, yeah, that's all you have to do. Cryptos make it even easier, because not all you need is a thumb drive. Or if you got one of those cool watches that even has its own little drive on it, you can just send it from one wallet to another. Just bing. So yeah, they're definitely going to do that. They're gonna have these big accounts. Oh yeah, we're looking to be a crypto money maker is what Citadel is applying for right now. They want to be market maker, crypto market maker, and as market makers, they get things like just deposits of huge amounts of US dollar tether coin into your account. Something like 85% of US dollar tether coin gets minted out of nothing and then just sent to market makers, and those market makers, it's like free money. It's the stupidest system. And there's no regulation behind US dollar tether coin. US dollar tether coin just makes currency out of thin air that's tied 1-to-1 to the US dollar, and there's no cash to back it up. So they just mint a bunch, and if they want to, they can just buy a bunch of Bitcoin with it. Here, I'm going to trade you my US dollar tether coin. It's worth $1 each one, but I'm going to buy, 10,000 Bitcoins with it, and now I've got all this Bitcoin, and you've got US dollar tether coin. You can't get shit for it, and we're on our way. It's just a wild west. So, if Citadel gets market maker status for crypto, all bets are out the window, man. They can do whatever they want. Carlos Rayo Cruz, birthday cake. Squamsk. WikiSearch Dead Hand, a Soviet-era system that initiates the launch of ICBMs. Lol. Or BMs. if it detects nukes. Yeah, there's definitely lots of systems like that. I'm very curious. Like, where I live, I think I may have shown you guys this before, but where I live, go there. There we go. I am in like dead middle of just a whole bunch of first strike zones. So first you have got Seattle, a giant tech sector, important strategic city, giant port, boom, first strike zone. Down the south in Tacoma, in this area, we've got Fort Lewis McChord Joint Air Force Base, Army Air Force Base. So the Stryker, Green Berets, those guys are here. A whole bunch of C-130s, fighter jets, you name it, are all here. Then you go up to Bremerton, where the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard is, and this is where pretty much if you are a ship in the Pacific and you need work, you come here. Plus, entire aircraft carrier groups are stationed here. So you can zoom in and you can see aircraft carriers, battleships, destroyers, you name it. All the work, the nuclear reactors are here. There's these crazy pools. I think they covered them up. You used to be able to see them from space. They're basically swimming pools that hold like old spent uranium and stuff here. You go a little bit north, you have Keyport. Keyport is where torpedoes are manufactured. So they're all manufactured here. The Naval Underwater Warfare Museum is there, and there's like a strategic underwater warfare center where they do all sorts of weird, I don't know, military stuff. Over here, and my pixels are not coming back. Come on, download. Down some pixels, buddy. You can do it. You can do it. This is Bangor. This is the Trident nuclear submarine base. And if you see all of these are all cruise missile nuclear warhead storage. If Kitsap County, where I live, this little peninsula right here, if we were to secede from the United States, we'd be the third largest nuclear power in the world. More nuclear weapons are stored in this grouping of bunkers than anywhere on Earth. This is the densest concentration of nuclear weapons in existence. And this is where all the submarines are. And so there's all sorts of weird dry docks and stuff for the submarines that work here, and they're all secret and, you know, hidden and not allowed to see any stuff. And then we go a little bit north. We go up to Indian Island. Here is where the conventional munitions for the Pacific Fleet are stored. So if you need, you know, bullets or mortars or howitzer rounds or whatever, those are all stored here. And then we go over to Everett, and we got the Everett Naval Base, where like the other half of the carrier groups are stationed. So little old me, who's on this island right here, I'm gonna get lit up like a Christmas tree the moment nuclear apocalypse anything happens. We used to have dozens of Nike nuclear missile silos stored all over the place. So several of our parks on the island. There is this is Eagledale Park. This used to be a Nike nuclear missile silo storage. There is Fort Worden down here, which was also in the turn of the century was batteries for shooting anything that tried to get into the Bremerton port here, but nuclear Nike missile silo. Battle Point Park. This was Nike missile silos. Where the observatory is now was the entrance to one of the silos. So this is like a little observatory that people can go to and see the stars and stuff. And then a little bit to the south, there is Strawberry Hill Park. There's Strawberry Hill. So Strawberry Hill here, the skate park, which is the skate bowl here, is the depression from where the Nike nuclear missile silo was. And you go up to this neighboring town, Paulsbo. The Walmart is built on top of a Nike nuclear missile silo. There's a park in Kingston built on top of a Nike nuclear missile silo. So back in the 50s and 60s, when they were terrified that all these Russian missiles were going to come in, they put these silos up and down the West Coast. And just hundreds, maybe thousands of interceptor rockets that had nuclear warheads on them. And the idea was, oh crap, these missiles are coming in, let's launch this stuff up, and if we're lucky, we can detonate nuclear bombs in the atmosphere off the coast and wipe out the warheads before they have a chance of hitting us, which would just result in fallout for everybody, but at least there wouldn't be like physical destruction. And then, you know, in the 80s when they started the Star Wars program, they shut all these things down, and now we just have, I don't know what systems we have, they're probably a lot of stuff top secret at this point. But man, I wouldn't doubt if there's a dead hand switch for not just them, but us as well. Okay. Justin My Head. Question 1. How much more likely is nuclear war if Zelensky is killed? Question 2. Also, when are we evicting cosmonauts on the ISS? Ooh. Oh man. I think nuclear war is possible, honestly, because Putin has painted himself into a corner where he is being embarrassed by the Ukrainian military and by the unpreparedness of his own military and some very glaring failures, not only in strategic matters. The strategy of invasion. He was just like, oh, we're just going to push in, and in a couple of days we'll have Kyiv, and we will take over the entire country. But he didn't have multiple phases, multiple waves come in for proper blitzkrieg, so he's stuck, and he doesn't have the backup. So there's currently just trainfuls of machinery coming from the Pacific coast, the east side of Siberia, coming across the country to further the invasion. But I guarantee you all that crap is broken and dilapidated and rusted and broken seals, and they don't have enough folks to take care of it all. So they're just going to bring a whole bunch more broken shit to invade that's just going to break down and run out of gas and anything else. So Putin is completely embarrassed. So if he pulls back now, what the world sees is one of the great militaries of the world isn't that great. And so he has to push forward in order to save face for the glaring lapses that have happened. And if he pushes forward, he pushes into Moldova, which has NATO, isn't a member of NATO, but it has NATO agreements, like working agreements with NATO. He might push into Poland. He might bring war to Belarus. And that is on the doorstep of the EU and NATO countries, which may trigger involvement from those countries, like direct involvement for those countries. And if that happens, then Putin says he's going to push the button. But man, if Zelensky is killed, I think that may change the phase of the war from Ukrainians defending their homeland to possibly going into guerrilla and terror tactics. That they push into, the hinterlands along the eastern border into Russia, and they start doing other things that are absolutely horrible. Because what else are you going to do? You have to go on the offensive at some point. The U.S. is talking about selling or giving offensive weapons to the Ukrainians. Poland just ordered a whole bunch of Reaper drones. I can see Reaper and Predator drones ending up in the hands of Ukrainians, probably being operated out of NATO bases, but owned by the Ukrainians, and just using those to wipe out the Navy along the southern shore. Just a lot of... It's going to get messy. It's going to get really messy, and I cannot fathom how horrible it's going to be. And, fingers crossed that when the order comes to push the button, there's some Russian general who's like, don't do that. you guy behind the counter, you're not going to push that button. Just ease off. But our hope is a coup in Russia, and that's kind of what we're hoping for here. So the ISS question, man. So the International Space Station only has another year and a half of operating life left. And we use capsules to escape the ISS, to leave the ISS. And it's usually contingent with Russians and Americans and then other international members up there. Who's up there right now? I wonder what... who is currently in ISS? Oh, gotta make it so you can see this, right? Bam. Bam. Okay. Cruise and expeditions. This is December. Current crew, ISS. There we go. Okay. Okay. So Expedition 66. I don't know what any of these things mean. But at least looks like I see two Slavic names there. That looks kind of Dutch. That looks like could be American, Canadian, American, Canadian, American, and Canadian. Could be from anywhere. Okay, so American, 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 Russian, Russian. So I got 2 Russians and 5 Americans up there. All right. So, I don't know. My guess is that anybody who is up in the ISS has overview effect. If you guys know overview effect, look it up. And they just see squabbles down below as the most pointless, meaningless thing in the entire world. And they just believe wars are stupid. And fighting over these resources is dumb. And so there's a group called the Overview Society, which is made up of just people who've been to space, who have seen the vastness of our planet and how alone it is in space. And when you look down, you don't see borders. You just see this lonely, isolated blue marble out in the vacuum of space. And there's something that happens to your brain when that happens. and it's called the overview effect. It was first really documented when Apollo astronauts on Apollo 8 came around the dark side of the moon and saw moonrise over the surface of the Earth, and all three of them basically their brains broke, and they just saw this down below them was this moonscape, this arid, bleak nothingness on the moon of just no life can exist, and then off in the distance was this blue marble where all the known life in the universe exists, and it's just alone, and it's just this film on the surface of this planet that just floats around a star in the middle of nowhere. And all three of them basically were like, wars are dumb, guns are stupid, this is all lame, we need to do something about it. Because they to that point, they'd been further away from our home than any human being ever, and the only ones who ever with their own eyes had seen the entirety of the Earth in one view. And I would reason to believe that anybody on the ISS, they're probably friends. They're probably all just like face palming themselves because there's nothing they can do, and they're stuck up there watching all this crap unfold, and they're just like, yeah. So that'd be my guess. You don't send dummies to the ISS. They're smart, reasonable people, and I don't think anybody's getting evicted off of there. I think they're all just shaking their heads in disbelief at this point. Okay, man, you guys gave me a lot of questions right off the bat, and okay, that was just in my head's one. Shin Chan, Houston, happy birthday. Having reviewed Gary Gensler's interview with Jon Stewart shows me how powerless the SEC really is. Buy and hold. Yeah, that's one. I'm hoping that members of Congress, other folks see that interview and they can recognize just how outgunned the SEC is, and that they need more funding, more people. Okay, turn that off. Of course, it was facing away from me, so I wasn't reading it. Okay. It's twice this week? 3 times this week? God. Okay, anyway, your questions? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Gary Gensler, Jon Stewart. I hope the powers that be can see that interview and see just how their constituents are getting manhandled by these powerful funds. And the thing is deregulation may create a short-term boom, but what it does is it makes an absolutely incredible bust that you can't do anything about. When it comes, everyone's screwed. So you deregulate the energy industry, and you get someone like Enron. And Enron starts taking over water systems and power companies and all sorts of stuff, and they do all these shady deals, and they're doing weird securities derivatives for the power market and futures contracts and blah, 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 blah. And then see the revenue just scream through the roof, and all of a sudden they also have like hundreds of billions of dollars in liabilities, and in 2 short years they're vaporized out of existence. Banks and mortgage lenders. You take the regulations away from the mortgage industry, all of a sudden they're giving, people live in cardboard boxes, $1 million loans for mansions, and they're packaging these in security derivatives and selling them all around as investments, and everybody's making just a shitload of money for like 4 years, and all of a sudden it explodes and the entire economy collapses and they got nothing. When you deregulate these industries, some folks will make a whole bunch of money in a really short amount of time, but there's a reason why a regulation exists. It's because they expand beyond the capacity of the market. It explodes, and then everything comes collapsing back down to worse than it was before. And, I think one of the keys to getting the SEC the type of regulation it needs is Congress to actually ban trading among their members and their families. Just eliminate their ability to trade. And I think it has a very slim chance of passing both House and Senate. Very slim. Like we're talking, 1% over majority to pass. And it's going to be a slog because Mitch McConnell doesn't want it, right? Mitch McConnell He and his wife have made tens of millions of dollars over the years doing trading. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want it. Her family's made $100 million over the years doing it. But there is a strange contingent of very rabid right-wing folks who want to end it, and far left wing of the Democrats who want to end it. And I see that as a possibility coming. And once you can get that banned from Congress, all of a sudden their pocketbooks are no longer tied to the regulations that are or are not enforced. All of a sudden they just have to go, all right, I guess, we may as well do something about this since I'm not benefiting from the system anymore. And I think that's probably the SEC's best bet at this point. Until then, we're screwed, man. Unless the DOJ gets involved, like the SEC, I think Gary Gensler's best bet is, instead of having the SEC just levy fines, whenever they find criminal behavior, they pass it off to the Department of Justice, where the AUSAs and the prosecutors take care of it. And then it becomes not you get a $100,000 fine for this $4 billion crime you committed. It is the DOJ either arrests, charges, convicts, or basically seizes the assets of entire funds and institutions. And that might be what we're seeing with the current collusion between funds that are being investigated by the Department of Justice. It might be the SEC's like, okay, if we just find these guys, it's not going to change. But if we get the Attorney General involved, then all of a sudden more serious consequences are actually going to happen, and change is going to be there. Okay, Karen Mirza again. Great show. Great content. Happy birthday. Is Steven Seagal a Vladimir buddy? Why haven't we heard from Edward Snowden? Yeah. So Steven Seagal, I think, has Russian citizenship now, and he is definitely a Putin fanboy. He lives in Russia now. That's where he lives, and he is 100% on board with Vladdy. And he and who's the other one? Gerard Depardieu, the French actor, also moved to Russia to be a fanboy of Putin. He left France and he's like, screw you, I'm moving to the Russia to hang out with Vlad. So he's got a very weird posse. very, very weird posse. Why haven't we heard from Snowden? Because Snowden is owned and controlled by the Russians. That's why. Snowden, yes, Snowden released information showing that the American government was spying on us. But he also stole hard drives with tens or hundreds of thousands of files of much more top secret things that he did not release, that he gave to the Chinese and Russians. He released data showing, yeah, Americans are spying on their citizens, which is what we knew that already. We knew about the carnivore program and stuff like that. Let's just name specific programs, like specific ways that they're doing the spying. But when he escaped, he took with him a trove of data that he gave to the Chinese and the Russians. First, he ended up in Hong Kong, then China, then Russia. And along the way, his hard drives and laptops were taken from him. And now he lives in Russia under the protection of the Kremlin against extradition back to the United States. And there's a reason why you won't see him tweet anything bad about Putin. Because he knows what side of his bread is buttered, right? That's why. So he was quiet for the first 5 days of the invasion after just yakking constantly about everything else. And then the invasion happens and then silence. And then it's the only tweet I saw after that was sometimes I don't feel like tweeting. Or, they don't control what I say. But then offered no opinions on the invasion, which suggests to me that you are controlled and you can't say what you want to say. Just from Dax. Have you seen Susquehanna's latest financial statement showing they only have $6,000 of cash on hand? What? Wait, what? No, I've not seen that. Susquehanna, cash on hand. Are you sure it's not 6,000 in news? Where would be filings? 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. How would I find this? Financial report. How would I? Oops. Of course, Google Earth is in the way. SEC report. Let's see here. $6,000 of cash on hand. This is... What reports are these? 301 annual report. Okay. Okay, ending there. Like, what type of typewriter? Like, you are a billion-dollar company. What typewriter is smashing this stuff out? Like, what antiquated? Okay. Rob Sack. All right. It's a report for 2021, written in 1935. Cash, 6. Holy shit. In thousands. What the what? Susquehanna has $2 billion in assets, but only $6,000 in cash on hand. What? How? What? How do you even meet payroll? What the hell? Securities sold, not yet purchased, $2,000. I find that hard to believe. Sold and agreements purchase. What? They got 2.6 billion liabilities, 2.6 billion assets. How amazing how that actually works out perfectly, huh? That their assets is exactly what their liabilities are? That to me is a giant red flag for the SEC and the DOJ. That is a giant red flag. What the heck? Just from Dax, thank you for pointing that out. That is absolutely mind-boggling. What the what? What the what? I don't know. That right there is either brilliant criminal accounting or the dumbest group of people who have access to billions in assets I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, what the what? Okay. Bill Coyne. Russia didn't do maintenance or R&D on their military. They also didn't invest in rocket technology. The missiles have to be from 30 plus years ago. Exactly. Putin, was releasing all these like propaganda videos about their supersonic nuclear rockets. Oh, we've got the capability to do Mach 10, and no American city can detect or combat it. He never had the money to actually build them. So all he ever saw was these like nuclear powered rockets and CGI videos. And then there was a nuclear explosion up in northern Russia, this summer? Was that what it was? And they think it was the test of the one rocket they had built just detonated on launch, and then just spread radiation over basically northern Russia and into northern Scandinavia. Russian nuclear rocket explodes 20. I believe it was this summer. Maybe it's 2019. Maybe it was longer ago. Yeah, it might have been 2000. Okay, this was 2019. Yeah, so 7 Russians died, and I think it was the prototype for this thing, and he didn't have the money to build the rest of them, and he lost the one that he tested, and it blew up, dumped a bunch of radioactive ash all over northern Europe. Problem with COVID is that what happened 3 years ago seems like it was a year ago, because the last 3 years are just this like smush, like just a sponge that's been wrung out. I don't know. So my brain thought, it's got to be like 6 months ago. No, it's 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. But oh shoot, you can't see that. So this is from New York Times from 2019. Basically, there's this giant explosion that happened in northern Russia. That there was a huge flash. All these radiation monitors went whoop, 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 radiation everywhere, and then 7 Russians died in the explosion. And I think it was this crazy rocket that Putin was saying could destroy the West, and he doesn't have the money to build this shit. And it exploded. I mean, the next generation submarine that they were trying to build, Russian sub-fire dry dock. So 2015, Russian sub that's in dry dock was like one of the nuclear attack subs, the next generation, just caught on fire. Done. There goes $1 billion. There was another one recently that happened. Was it submarine? Was it aircraft carrier? Crap. Can't remember. We'll do Russian dry dock fire. Yeah, there's a carrier. So Russia's only aircraft carrier caught on fire and burned to the ground also in 2019. So they don't have an active carrier group anymore because it caught on fire and is no more. So they lost their most advanced submarine to a fire in a dry dock, and they lost their only aircraft carrier to a fire in a dry dock, and their next generation nuclear missile exploded and killed the scientists who were in charge. So either they're so incompetent that all this crap and mistakes keep happening, or there is James Bond out there wiping out all of Russia's capabilities. The world's greatest spy is just like, well, I'm going to pour a bunch of gasoline on this aircraft carrier and it's gone. So yeah, it's phenomenal. What just the bumbling. It's bumbling and it's an incompetence, and it's the type of thing that happens when you get rid of the folks who are competent at their jobs because they told you no someday. Man, just what the what? I think of Kyle's mom on South Park, like what? Whenever I read these headlines. Oh man, I'm so far behind so far, even just in super chats. Okay, that was Bill Coyne. Hone de Jesus, Houston. What if Putin owns majority of GME and AMC shares and the government prevents the squeeze on the basis of not funding Putin's war chest? Well, if that were be the case, which, you know, would be a brilliant move to if Putin was able to manipulate the markets that hard. Remember, it was announced last week that there is a special task force whose entire job it is to locate and seize any and all assets that are involved in the United States. So if there's securities, like U.S. securities, owned by some shell company attached to the Kremlin, those suckers are getting seized. So if it squeezes, the U.S. government owns those stocks, which would be definitely to the benefit of us, right? Because why wouldn't the government want to see a giant squeeze happen when they can get a huge amount of dollars out of it, right? You know, Fed, you print it. Government, I get it. We're cool. So that's the one thing. So if it was a plan on Putin's part, he did not expect sanctions to go as brutal as they're going right now, where homes, assets, bank accounts are going to get seized and owned by the U.S. government probably at that point. Your wife, boyfriend, how does quartz make a watch work? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever actually looked that up. Oop. Quartz crystal watch. The battery produces a current in the watch, which quartz crystals apart. This current causes the quartz to vibrate at precisely 3,278 32,768 times a second. The circuit count oscillations each time it does that. Oh, I guess that's one pulse. So it's using the harmonic frequency of the crystal. That's pretty brilliant. All right, that's how it works. I never actually looked that up before. Thank you for. I just learned something. I love learning things. Cool. And that's why Japan just started crushing the Swiss with watch sales, because they put quartz in the watch to do that. Badass. Way to go, scientists. I love it. Oh, you guys can't see. I'm looking at this. It's just some website that says, how does quartz watch work? Boom. Done. All right. Grandpa Barney, power surge. I knew I'd turn it off. Thanks for the laugh. Well, you're my brother. Thanks for the dedication to my mom. No, thank you, Barney. heart goes out to you, man. I wish you the best, and it's, I don't know what to do other than just wish you the giant big bear hug right now. So, best of luck to you. Fork and power outlet. When do we start sharpening our pitchforks? Mine are in the garage. I did the grinder in the garage. Mine is sharpened, ready to go. I just need to keep them polished and well oiled so they don't rust over. But yeah, it might be pitchfork time soon. Moopulin. Have you heard of Chris Lanigan's CTMU? And if so, what's your opinion on it? I have not heard of it, so I have no opinion. Chris Lanigan's CTMU. Chris. Can't spell Chris, apparently. Lanigan. CTMU. Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe. Ooh, this looks like it's something that's going to take a while to read. All right, I'm gonna have to read about that. That sounds like I've got a few thousand pages of stuff to read about that. So, yeah. All right. So I don't know about it yet. They're Moopulin, so I'm gonna have to look that up because I've not read on it, and it looks like there's a lot of books that I have to read. Apparently, it's been around a while. This first book was published in 2002 about it. All right. Okay. Karen Mirza, Marijuana Canada, Universal Healthcare. Loopring texted something about shorts and Tide. Yeah, when the tide goes out, a lot of people are going to be naked. Something like that was from one of the Loopring guys. I saw that tweet. That's pretty brilliant. Reminds me of, have any of you ever been to Iceland? There's a famous tourist trap called the Blue Lagoon. And it's a spa in Iceland. And it's beautiful. I've been there. And what you have is, it's freezing cold outside. And you're in this hot thermal pond, which is actually the runoff from a geothermal plant. And so all these folks are sitting in this hot water, just kind of floating around. But it's only like 2.5, 3 feet deep. The entire giant acres of this pond. And it's pretty interesting because it's really silica rich, which is where this blue water comes from. And all the white stuff along the rocks are actually opal that's being formed. So there's lots of common opal that forms along the rocks. It's really smooth and it's fun to touch. But you got dozens or hundreds of people just kind of sitting around in this water. And as I was out there enjoying myself and taking pictures and floating around or whatever, I realized all of a sudden that I'm surrounded by more people squatting at one point than I've ever had in my entire life, and that there are like 300 people all squatting right now in the water. It's really weird. So if the water just vanished all of a sudden, you would just see hundreds of people doing the Slavic squat all at once, and it was just the weirdest vision in my head while I was there. Oh, while I was there, Liv Tyler was there also. She was looking gorgeous and floating around and drinking at the bar that's in the water. That was celebrity sighting. But yeah. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the tweet from one of the Loopring guys said something to the effect of, when the tide goes out, it'll reveal a whole bunch of naked shorts that are naked or something like that. People that are naked. That's definitely an allusion to naked shorts for sure. Okay. And last one. Okay, I'm almost caught up with the super chats here. Bill Coyne, Houston. Russia won't have the money used to buy shorts connected to them. Everyone misses that part. That's true. Russia has no money. Their biggest bank in the world is worth $0. Gazprom and Rosneft are tanking as well because everyone knows that sanctions are coming. And there's probably going to be an embargo on oil field tech going to Russia. And without, the big U.S. companies, the Halliburtons and KBRs and Exxons and all those groups, if you don't have U.S. machinery to help with your pipelines and your drilling rigs and your oil platforms, you may as well not have those machines. It is U.S. contractors who keep those machines working. So, and my guess is that embargo is coming for sure. Josh Pephouse, Tennessee, happy birthday, and I'll be watching. Wondering what is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? $31 to 40 miles an hour. There you go. African or European swallow, 31 to 40 miles an hour range. It's been a while since I saw the Holy Grail. It's time. Okay. All right. So, man, you guys super chatted the shit out of me on a Saturday here. Now I can finally get to the main chat and see what's happening because I have no idea. I am 53 minutes, well, technically, because the first chat came in at 2:21 p.m., 40 minutes before my show started. I am almost 2 hours behind in the chat. So, Chakaseki, I feel like living through a Iron Maiden Megadeth song. Yeah. Children of the Damned. Bruce Dickinson is one of the coolest people in the entire world, by the way. If you guys don't know about Bruce Dickinson, look him up and you'll be like, that is one of the coolest human beings that ever existed on planet Earth. Okay. Iggy Lemon, has anyone seen the Untouchables documentary by PBS? Wondering if it's any good. I have not seen it. I've never heard of it. So I didn't know it existed. So there you go. That's my answer on that one. Mupulin, is it possible that starting wars are the progenitor of naked shorts? I think in this case, this war is not necessarily connected with the market in general. Largely because the fact that Putin and his buddies have no access to any of it anymore. So they've lost out any opportunity. So if there was like okay, let's strike a deal. If we invade and we collapse economies, we're going to make a bunch of money off of this. High five. They aren't making shit at this point. So they just got cut out of that deal. So it'd be a really hard deal to make. But what's interesting is the European markets all dropped 2 to 4%, right? On Friday. And then the U.S. market, not much, 0.8% here and there. What I think is happening right now, and somebody messaged me the other day, they're like, have you noticed that whenever the SPY drops 1.9%, a huge amount of buying happens and it goes right back up again? And so I looked it up and was like, yeah, anytime the SPY gets to 1.7, 1.8, 1.9%, it's a huge rebound. And what I think is happening, and I don't have any confirmation of this, but I think that the Fed is doing direct injections into the market and accumulating a huge amount of securities to buoy the price of those securities. And, the last time they did injections like this in 2020. They didn't tell anyone about it. And it ended up being in the tens of trillions of dollars that they were doing. I think the total was, the stuff that was on the books was like 7 to 9 trillion in PPP, bailouts, COVID payments, things like that. And then there was another like 7 or 8 trillion that were these secret direct injections in the market to keep the market afloat. They revealed then, like last fall. I wouldn't doubt if we're seeing that right now, that to keep the market buoyed leading up to raising rates, that they're just dumping cash that they printed or reserve notes or something into the market to keep it afloat. It's there's no reason whatsoever. No one has the capital and cash on hand to keep the SPY from dropping, except for the folks who own the printer. I think that's where we are right now. Meow Meow. They said they would try to get Metamaterials dividend by the end of the year. I'd be wary of those July options. Yeah, if I invest, I think I'm going to go for October or later. This month should be, those MMTLP should turn into Oil Co. But so I think I'm going to go past July. I'm going to go further if I do get a whole bunch of metamaterial options. And if I do, I'm going to try and get like 1,000 of them, 1,000 contracts or something big and worth it. And I don't think it will really matter if I get one that's close to being in the money, or one or the stuff that's farther out. Because right now I think the most expensive, or The highest call you can get for Metamaterials in October is like a $5 one, which I'd prefer to get something that was like $10 or $15 strike, because then you can just gather up thousands and thousands of them for pennies. But no one's writing those right now. So if the moment someone does, that's what I'm getting, man. That's what I'm gonna get, and hopefully, you get 1,000 of them. Price goes to $100. It's $8 to $10 million, like that, for a $6,000 to $10,000 investment. I just need to get the $6,000 to $10,000 first. That would help. Of course, if I had $6,000 to $10,000, I probably should fix my engine on my truck. Life, man. It's always like I should do that. Should do that. I don't know. Okay. All right. Always on. Houston, happy birthday. What's your take on the recent HBO doc and Jon Stewart show? HBO doc, meh. Jon Stewart show, it was okay. It did feel a bit fuddy. I think Stewart would have been helped by having like an ape as a producer, like somebody who's on the inside helping him produce and saying, okay, this is what we need to look for, because I think he approached it as he and his team approached it as somebody who's kind of ignorant on the topic, and they didn't quite know the exact questions to ask or the exact mechanics to talk about that are involved. And so it didn't quite have the panache. And that's, they did a good job aside from that, but I think it would have helped to have, like, if Stewart knew somebody who was an ape, and they'd be like, okay, this is the thing that's going to be happening. These are the questions you need to ask, and these are the answers you need to get from them. I think that would have helped a lot more, to give it like that je ne sais quoi that would have made it even better. It was pretty good, but I think there needed to be a much bigger the world is fucked because of this type thing. Just me. What's up with the Serbs, Nazis in Ukraine, and other stuff Boss keeps talking about? He sounds kind of aggressive, conspiracy crazy, and annoys me. I don't know. He was talking about how NATO destroyed his country. My roommate is a Croatian Serb who survived. His family survived the war and escaped mainly because NATO got involved. That's kind of why he's alive. There were factions that formed that were just slaughtering each other wholesale. His mom tells a story about being invited over to her girlfriend, her college classmate's house for tea, and they ended up having tea laying down on the floor because sniper bullets were ripping through the wall. Right? It was a mess. And NATO did not destroy Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was already destroyed when communism fell. Tito was the only thing holding that country together. And it was one of those, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing, where Tito, while being respected as a very strong leader and, stood up to the Russians and stuff like that, the only reason these factions held together was because pretty much the population was against Tito. And the minute he was gone, created a power vacuum. You had tons of Serbian militias because the Serbs were large parts of the organized military, and you got dudes like Slobodan Milosevic who wanted to basically wipe out all these groups. And these Slavs, the Serbians hate the Albanians, the Bosnians hate the Serbians, and the Jews hate the Muslims, the Christians hate everybody. It is so integrated, and there's so many different populations that bled across different borders during Yugoslav time that they got entrenched. And then the minute that these borders were redrawn, they were on the wrong side of them, and just absolutely gnarly, gross, horrible, genocidal battles happened. And NATO was like, this is on our borders, causing refugee crisis. We need to stop this. So they did a giant air campaign and then ended up with blue helmets on the ground to keep the peace. And it worked. And now you have all these former Yugoslavian nations joining the EU, wanting to join NATO. And they see the benefits of like joining the common currency, and they're just remaining on their best behavior right now. They're like, oh, like we cannot create death squads because if we do, the EU won't let us in here anymore. And so they're just on their best behavior, which has resulted in my favorite statue in the entire world. So, this is my favorite statue in the entire existence. So there's a Bruce Lee statue in Kosovo, and the Albanians and the Serbians, they're trying to like establish peace in like commemorate the end of the war, peace among their people, and they just had so many disagreements they couldn't think of a way to commemorate this peace, and so they built a statue of Bruce Lee because it was the only thing they could agree on. It's absolutely brilliant. So their peace statue is Bruce Lee because they like anything the Kosovan Albanians wanted, the Serbians like no, that's too Albanian, we can't do that. And anything the Serbians wanted, the Albanians like no, that's too Serbian. But they all agreed Bruce Lee was a badass, so they made a statue of Bruce Lee to commemorate the end of the war, which I think is brilliant, hilarious, and I love it so much. Is the coolest statue for the coolest reason in the entire world. That no matter what your political affiliation, no matter what your beliefs are, how much you hate another person, everyone can agree that Bruce Lee was a badass. And come on, get it there. And I love it. It's my favorite statue ever. Like, just hilarious. It's just Bruce Lee in the middle of this park. Like, and they really gave Bruce Lee just a gigantic schlong. Look at that thing. That is just a massive staff. Way to go, Bruce Lee. That's how much the Slavs love you, is that they gave you just a pipe. So there you go. All right. Wildcat Strike. The Great Resignation and better than expected jobs report makes my brain hurt. Where I live in Minnesota, we are seeing crazy hiring bonuses and labor strikes. Also, is that an African or European swallow? We're in a very weird spot. And we talked about this before. You know, we have millions who resign their jobs because, like, you know what, life's too short. Fuck this shit. I'm not doing this anymore. We have, you know, 1 million Americans plus who have died from COVID, right? We've got another 13 million who are currently disabled from their infection. Heart problems, lung problems, brain fog, you name it. They can't do their job anymore. We have another 3 million boomers who retired earlier than expected because they're like, you know what, I'm not working this job anymore if everyone's going to be coughing all over each other. And then you had 3 to 4 million mothers who unexpectedly pulled out of the workforce because, you know, their kids are doing online school, things like that. Like, they had to take care of their kids because the normal infrastructure that watches their kids half the day wasn't there anymore. So there's a huge dearth of workers, you know, 10, 20 million workers that just aren't working right now. And they're not unemployed. They're disabled or they can't work. Or they just refuse to. So they're considered unemployed. And so you've got 10, 20 million folks that have experience, that have knowledge, and they're just like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm out. You've got a serious lack of service workers. Just a serious lack of service workers. The numbers from the summer in the Seattle area where I live was our metropolitan area needs 50,000 restaurant workers in order to like actually meet demand for the service. And if you are a cute waitress, you're good looking, you're making, you know, $100, $200, $300 a day in tips at your serving job, and then the job vanishes for a year, you may turn to things like OnlyFans or make a little booby channel on Snapchat or whatever, and all of a sudden, you made a good middle class living as a waitress, getting accosted by customers, having creepy stalkers and everything else. But now you're working like 4 hours a week and pulling down $100,000 a month. You're not going to go back to your restaurant job. You just aren't. And there's quite a few ladies making money in legal sex work now, where they don't have to deal with being groped or assaulted or yelled at or kitchen staff. They just don't have to deal with that crap anymore, and they're making a fortune, essentially, showing off their cleavage and having a great time. Those ladies are not going back to restaurant work. We have basically made it so miserable to be a Latin American immigrant in the United States that a lot of the folks who are working restaurant work, landscaping, farm work, they're out. They're like, screw this. I can make just as much money back in Mexico and not have to deal with this racism and other bullshit. And then we're keeping any new ones from coming in. So if you want cheap labor to go into the market and to drop the wages, our xenophobic policies are really hampering that. So it's a great time to be looking for a job. You're going to make a killing compared to what you were before. It's sheep ducking cow you. Not to mention millions of foreign-born workers who said if this went back home, said F this and went back home. Wonder why your salad came out late. Yeah, it is miserable. And if you were a restaurant worker during like the first emergence from COVID, when people were starting to sit in restaurants again, the folks who showed up were awful. They were the meanest of the mean, and they just, I know quite a few people who are like, fuck this, I'm out. And they're starting careers, they're starting their own, they're doing something else with their time. And they took a lot of that time off, that year and a half off from working, to better their skills, to go back to school, I have a friend that I worked with in a restaurant, and she's now starting radiology school because she was like, screw this. I'm going back to school to get a new skill. It's going to pay me a fortune compared to working this restaurant work. I don't have to deal with customers anymore. And this is someone who worked in restaurants for like 20 years. So, there's a lot of those folks just leaving the job. Okay. Mupulin. Is it possible that Russia is a puppet state for China or any other nefarious actors? I think China's trying to have as many puppet states as they want. I'm trying to figure out, like, China's, what do they call it? Silk Road. What's the name of the term? There's a term for their $1 trillion investments in these nations all over the world. China, international investments infrastructure. What's the name of it? Belt and Road Initiative. That's what it was, not Silk Road. Belt and Road Initiative. So China is in nations all over the earth, and what they want is they want to control nations. They want to have undue influence on lots of nations around the world, and they want access to raw materials, and they want to increase markets. So they are investing in roads, trains, ports, mines, all sorts of things, because they need those raw materials back in China so their factories can make stuff and ship them around the world. So they're spending $1 trillion, and they're doing it in economic hitman fashion, which is they go to a country like the Congo and say, hey, Congo, the main road that bisects your entire nation is a muddy mess, and people get trapped in mud pits for weeks at a time, and your entire economy is suffering from it. So we're going to pave you a giant road, beautiful highway that goes across the country, so you can move goods and materials across your country, and it's going to be fantastic. And the Congolese are like, that sounds cool. China says, okay, we're gonna pay for all of it, but you can just owe us a loan. Like, it's going to cost us $1 billion. You owe us $1 billion for this road. Just pay it over time. The Congolese are like, oh, whatever. And then the Congolese don't pay, and China goes, okay, well, we're just going to foreclose on this train depot. We own that now. We're going to foreclose on this port or whatever. And they end up owning chunks of these nations. So how they did that was international investors banks, institutions, funds, right? Our money goes into the Royal Bank of Canada or into Bank of America or into BlackRock or whatever. Our money goes from into the one's institutions. One's institutions goes and they buy a boatload of bonds in China. China takes those bonds. They go to Eritrea or Djibouti or Indonesia or wherever, and they do a giant infrastructure project, and then they make the country they did in pay them a bunch of money. So our money paid for China to build projects so that those nations can owe China money. And when those nations don't pay back, China, forecloses and takes it or takes other infrastructure that's of equal value. And now they control, valuable infrastructure in these nations. Well, what happens is when China doesn't pay us, what do we foreclose on? Right? How do we go to China? That bond we gave you that we paid for, you're not paying us back. We're gonna need to have like all this land in China. China's gonna go, fuck you, no. and these big banks are gonna go, oh shit. But we paid like $1 trillion. China's gonna go, so fucking what? I don't care. You can swivel on it. And what are they gonna do about it? So we paid for China to own parts of nations all over the world, and China's never going to pay us back. And they're going to have undue influence in all these nations as a result of this process. So what China is doing now is Russia and China have always hated each other because there's always been competition to be like king communists, right? The Soviet Union, I am communist, I am superpower, and China's like, but we've got like 1 billion people, we should be a superpower too, and Russia's like, no. And now that China is this giant economic hegemon and Russia is playing catch up, they still don't like each other very much, but they share a giant border, and China needs oil and Russia needs hard currency. So just before the invasion, they struck this huge deal for oil and gas out of Russia into China for euros, because they weren't going to do it in dollars, that's for sure. So they're doing these deals in euros. Well, now that Russia has no banking system, no economy, no market, they're at the whim of anyone who can get them hard currency into their market. And so China, I think, is trying to rule Russia that way. Under the threat of the SWIFT banking system ever being removed, Russia developed a banking system that runs parallel to that. And the only nations that have joined, I think it's Russia created it, China joined, India joined, Iran, and maybe Turkey or something. I think there's only a few countries. Technically, they have like half the human population joined in this thing, but they don't. The only economic hegemon in it is basically China, because like who gives a shit if Iran's part of your banking system or not? No one cares. So now Russia can only basically do banking with these other countries, but it's not enough. Consumers, like they may produce raw materials or produce things, but they themselves are not consumer economies yet. Where if the United States stopped buying shit from China goes bankrupt overnight, because us exporting U.S. dollars to China and China exporting plastic shit to the rest of the world. That is the transaction. So if China does something that causes us to say, you know what, we're not buying stuff from China anymore and we're going to go without for a while, China's screwed. Their entire economy is dependent upon U.S. people being like, I want to buy another television or phone or whatever, cheap chintzy toy, headphones, plastic dildo, whatever and I'm going to get cheap. Well, all of a sudden, that tooling is going to have to go elsewhere. The company that's responsible for making like every cell phone and motherboard and everything else in the world, video card, is Foxconn. Foxconn's a Taiwanese company. Yes, their mega factories are in China, but if China ever tries to invade Taiwan, Foxconn shuts down. And they will blow up that tooling before they let China have control of it all. And so all of a sudden, none of us will get cell phones. We'll all be like using 10-year-old Nokias because our old cell phones will have broken, and those are the things that will work. And we'll be stuck on that for a while until the tooling can be built elsewhere, until we're having Foxconn factories in Kenya or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting to think about. Like, what type of hegemony can you create out of a country that's so dependent upon consumers elsewhere and a nation that has nothing. Yeah. China's definitely going to try and puppet Putin. And Putin is not going to like that because he likes to be top dog. He does not like having anybody tell him what to do. So they're going to, I think we see lots of butting heads as a result of that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Did I miss other ones? Meow meow. Google Philip Schneider aliens. Select the first link. Google Philip Schneider aliens. Come on. Philip Schneider aliens. Gray aliens killed 60 U.S. soldiers. What? In underground battle in New Mexico. What? He's not a person who worked for many years. Collaboration, special service in the United States. Access the third level of secrecy. But at some point decided that people should know they are kept in ignorance and grossly deceived about everything happening into UFOs and aliens. So this is an audiobook about that. Ghost Hunt Back. It's Audacity. Okay. I'm definitely going to have to check this out. It sounds ridiculous. If you guys can't see, this is on Audacity. Gary Schneider, aliens. Okay. All right. He's an engineer. Born in 1947. Okay. So he's born right around the time the Roswell thing happened. Interesting. All right. I'll check that out. Okay. Where are we? We are only, we're 2 hours behind in the chat. Who knew Saturdays were so robust? What are you nerds doing home on a Saturday? Okay. Billy Illy has got coordinates for me. So we might as well do actual coordinates since we got all this crap up. And see where we're going in the world and what weird things we're talking about. Control V, bam. We're flying. Going across the planet. We ended up in a piece of ocean in the middle of nowhere. Billy Illy. I am so disappointed in you right now. Spreading Ridge. Got the Spreading Ridge off between Antarctica and the Indian Ocean here. Yeah, that's not exciting. Anyway. Chud McGruff Cakes. Good evening, Houston. Can you please explain the IDES of March in detail and how it's connected to the 4 times increase of settlement fails and mortgage-backed security? Oh, I was like, IDES of March. That's just when a bunch of senators stabbed Caesar. But you want to know and why mortgage-backed securities saw a giant growth and failures. That is incredible. If you guys didn't see the graph, I posted it on Twitter. Basically, this week saw failures in mortgage payments increased by 4x over like the previous week. An absolute huge jump in mortgage foreclosures or failure defaults. Why it happened on the 4th? That I don't quite know. Might be tied to, when was the first eviction moratorium, the CDC eviction moratorium stopped? Was that September 1st or October 1st? I think it was October 1st. So March, February, January, December, November, October. So 6 months. All right. So that might be the 6-month mark that we're dealing with. If it's September 1st or whatever. So that might be why that it reaches 6 months and all of a sudden there's a reporting as to for these foreclosures or failure to pays or whatever. That might be, I'll look it up for sure as to the reason why, but that makes sense to me. You know, they make these triggers on monthly basis, and if someone's failing to pay, then all of a sudden, like, oh, it's been 6 months, we got to report to the regulators, boop, and then this huge flood of them has happened. Okay. Paratair in Houston, you see the new post from Robbie, Immutable, about the new timeline updates. Also, thoughts on Superstonk getting a mirror, Ask Me Anything with Jon Stewart. Also, do you win? If not, could do well is for do. Yeah. I've not seen Robbie's thing. Whenever you have DD, just send it just DM it to me on Twitter. That's I read so much people send me. I don't really have the chance to like explore. So I just spend all day like, oh, I'm reading this article someone sent me, and then boop, there's another one. I'll read this one next. So I don't have a chance to like ever go to Superstonk and just scroll anymore, or any of the other pages. It's the only time I'm ever on Reddit is when someone tags me. Otherwise, I'm not there. So like Get It Got sent me his latest DD on the survey he did, and that's the only reason I see it is if someone like Get It Got like, hey, look at this. So I look at it. There it is. All right. There's not enough hours in the day for me to read everything I want to read. I try. Billy, haha, sucker. I just wanted you to get some coordinates so you'd forget the intro. Hope it worked. But for real, do you have an opinion on the Formula 1 debacle from last season? Oh, man. Those of you who aren't Formula 1 fans, the final race of the year was dog shit. Basically, Lewis Hamilton was going to win. He was going to win. And it appears that Formula 1 told everyone else to just like pull back and let it be a race between the top 2 points guys. And it was total garbage. The Formula 1 fans were pissed. I think the Formula 1 heads realize now they made a gigantic mistake, and they didn't let it be a fair race for all the folks that were in it. And Hamilton should have won that race and been grand champion. So that's my opinion, and that Formula 1 should never do that again. And I think it may be years before they forget about what debacle it was and they end up doing it again. Bex, happy birthday, Houston. People keep referring to GME having squeezed last year, but the SEC report from investigating the incident said not a squeeze. How can this info get out there? Easy. People don't know what a squeeze is, and they believe the first thing they hear. And then they usually don't check in further and look at anything further than that. So that's where... Hi, buddy. That's how. You know, for half of Americans, last week might have been the first time they ever heard of the word Ukraine. So in their head now is like, Ukraine, all right, I learned everything I need to go. Blurp, and they're just on with their lives again. Pankaj Kumar, Houston, no option cycle date working, nor any news helping apes. Lots of FUDs around. Please give us assurance reason MOAS will happen, surely, and there's no way we won't retire rich feeling down. I was discussing this in DMs the other day, that when someone is like, oh my gosh, look at this pattern, every single time on these dates, this weird thing happens and the price rockets. And they point it out, and 50,000 people watch it, and they spread it all over Reddit and all over Twitter, and they do YouTube videos about it, that there is somebody at a hedge fund that watched that video and they go, oh, they're on to us. We need to sell a bunch of crypto so we can generate a whole bunch of liquidity, and then we use that liquidity to hammer the stock price down on this exact date. Because if we don't, that's going to happen, and everyone's going to high-five each other for getting their DD right. That's what I think is happening, is that we are telling the hedge funds exactly what we know is up, and the hedge funds go, oh, time to adapt. And then they adapt. And as long as they can keep doing weird things with manipulating puts and calls and dumping crypto and whatnot, they're going to keep piling on liquidity. But that liquidity is being used as a margin, and that margin is being used to further short down these stocks, which is just digging the hole deeper. So when, and there will be a when, because economies always collapse, there will be a time they lose access to their liquidity. It vanishes. They will be over leveraged and then vaporized. And each day, we are one day closer to that happening. We can't predict it. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen. Just like we can't predict an earthquake. We know that, this fault may have an earthquake once every 300 years, and we are 270 years from the most recent earthquake. Therefore, the probability of earthquake happening in the next 30 to 50 years is 100%, right? Like, they don't know the exact date it's going to happen. They just know that in this span of time, there's a 1 in 1 chance an earthquake's going to happen in that period of time, because that's what the earth does, like clockwork. we know that MOAS is going to happen. We know the economy is going to collapse. We know that at some point they're going to run out of liquidity. And when that happens, cha-ching for us. The problem is that we haven't been able to predict the exact date because that exact date is pretty much unknowable at this point. Anytime we do, someone at a hedge fund goes, I just read on Reddit, these assholes think it's going to happen on the 19th. Therefore, we have to make sure it doesn't happen on the 19th. And they'll do whatever they can to keep that from happening. Because our DD is pretty damn good. And they are adapting and reacting to it. They go, oh, shit. They may not have even realized just what kind of obligations they'd be up to on April 10th or whatever. And they go, oh shit, we have to look at April 10th and figure out, oh yeah, we got all these contracts to do, all these FTDs we got to do. We're gonna have to do some sort of debt swap or equity swap or whatever to take care of that. We got to build up liquidity before we face margin call. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with. That we're just telling them everything we know, and they're using that against us because they are not dummies. They want to survive just as much as we want to be filthy rich. Okay, Greg, do you think Gary Gensler is closing up all the loopholes before he drops the bomb on all this? Also, when this starts, what do you think the halts will be like? Man, that's a good question about the halts. Because like the circuit breakers trigger and then it stops trading for 5 minutes or whatever, and that starts again. But if the trading computers have to buy everything back, they may have to just turn off the circuit breakers. And I've been like, let's let this thing rip until it's over, and that's going to be that. But at the beginning, there'll probably be several circuit breakers that go and stop trading until they just go, you know what, we got to remove this thing. We've got 1 billion buy orders that are going in right now, so we have to just turn this off. That might be kind of how it rolls. Okay. Scott Ellis, happy birthday. Oops. Oh, shit. I just lost. It said Scott Ellis, and it's gone now. Oh, God. Sorry, Scott. I read Scott Ellis, happy birthday, and then my chat just reset, and it's gone now. Now I'm stuck at 3:22 p.m. So anyone who chatted before 3:22 p.m., I apologize. Your chat is gone forever. I don't see it anymore. Okay. So now we're at 3:22 p.m. So now I'm only an hour and 8 minutes behind in the chat. So there you go. George Polikaris just tweeted something interesting. Okay, Yogi 2012. Thank you. Does that mean I've got to go find George's thing? All right, Twitter.com. Search for George Polikaris. What do we got? 1 hour ago. Since we do not have time on the earnings call to go into details, we're preparing a dedicated presentation over where as many preferred shareholder questions will be answered. I personally fully understand everyone's frustrations. We are executing a plan. Thank you for your patience. So this is from a guy asking about the MMTLP dividend. Oops, you guys can't see because the earth is in the way. Sorry, I might have done that earlier actually. There it is. Okay. All right, so this is a response to some guy's Sarab Kumar. I hope I pronounced his name right. With all due respect, sir, could we shareholders please get an update on the MMTLP dividend? It has been many times delayed, which is a little frustrating to shareholders. A little update on anticipated date and value of dividend would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So, sounds like they're going to have a special Q&A just for that. Yeah. Okay. It's a good question, and he's been responding. So I guess we look out for when they announce that. All right. Cool. Okay. Bullish on Houston's second intro. Man, your calls are paying out, Bullish. Hey, HW, just stopping by to remind everyone, MOAS by next Friday is imminent. Keep your heads up. Happy birthday. Every Friday. It's happening every Friday, Bullish. I think you waste your predictions on when MOAS is happening and in lieu of nailing my second intro ones. Freddie Fredberger, have you looked into Vortex Institute? Guy seems sus, but I'm not smart enough to check his math. Vortex Institute. Never heard of it. Vortex Institute. Find an intersection between the practical and impossible. Okay. Welcome to Vortex. What is this all about? Where strong currents of strategy and execution create investments for our community. It's not for profit organization, focused discussion, and subsequent actions surrounding issues affecting our community, institute, fellows, blah, blah, blah. Which community is that? Tampa? Tampa community? I know nothing about Tampa. Or any of these people involved. So, I don't know who they are. So no, I have no opinion on the Vortex Institute or the people involved. Never heard of them. So, there you go. Sorry, I don't know much more about that, Freddie Freiberger. Who are these? Andrew Mates Jr.? That dude. Banking, finance, construction, cybersecurity, construction lawyer. Well, he seems to be a lawyer in a whole bunch of stuff. And the other one? Kelly Cassidy. There's Kelly. Education background. Works at school district. So she seems like the tag along to the other guy. He probably brings her along because she's pretty or something. I don't know. But she doesn't have much of a bio compared to the other dude. Yeah. Made a career change and now works for Majesty Title Service. Okay, so she was a teacher and she was like, fuck this. I want that bank. So she left. So I have no idea who they are. Oh, YouTube, not Google. Ah. Okay. YouTube. This one? Science free of dogma, biases, forbidden words, questions, providing scientists the freedom to explore. I have no idea who this is. Okay. So we explore the boundaries of knowledge, independent, transdisciplinary research, community outside the confines of traditional academic institutions. Location Switzerland. No idea who this is, so I don't know. Not too many views, only 8,000 views. So, if that's the right Vortex Institute, are there more Vortex Institutes? Vortex Institute podcast, that's the one I just looked at. I don't know. I don't know who they are. So that's where I'm left at. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm at the point. Okay, I'm scrolling through responses to questions asked earlier. 52080 Cinema TV Group or Group TV. 80% of Russians love Putin. I don't know about that. If 80% of people loved you, you wouldn't have to like kill off the opposition. You would just crush them with the love of the other people. I don't think people love Putin. I think they realize that he's been just stealing from them, and their quality of life has suffered as a result. I think they're tired of it. But the problem is that until that point, the police and military leaders, that they were paid well to suppress the opposition, and now they may not have the money to pay those folks well. I think we might be looking at a complete paradigm shift as a result. Okay. The suspense of the second intro is getting juicy. Oh, I did forget to put, sorry, I forgot to swap over Google Earth earlier. Dang it, I do that crap. Freddie Freiberger, that was it. Basically, math of underlying limits of reality. He says he has math underlying constants of the universe based on vortex math. I'll check that out because I have no idea what any of that means. Yeah. So I'll have to look at the math and see exactly what he means. I remember when I was in college, I was looking for a job, and there was a guy that said that he was a scientist, and he needed basically a whipping boy to help him like run experiments and crunch numbers. And I was like, yeah, I'm physics and math. Let's do this. So I went, and it wasn't a job interview. It was like me and 10 other people that all thought they were going to be like having a job interview. And then this guy went into this weird toroidal math numerology lesson about like the meaning of the universe. How the universe was a torus, and he showed us all these weird ways of like using pictures to count and do math. And it seemed much more like I had been invited to a strange cult. And he used the term vortexes and torus a lot, and toroid. And I was like, yeah, this dude's a weird hippie. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at Vortex Institute and see if the math actually checks out, or if I'm looking at a hippie. Okay. Munchausen, Annabelle. Houston, will we ever return to a world similar to the one before coronavirus and Russian war? No. I do think, like, things change. Like, we have to look at how we track diseases, how we mitigate outbreaks, and the proactive work. Say what you will about George Bush, George W., but his work concerning the outbreak and possible pandemics was foundational. And then the reaction of the Obama administration to the danger of Ebola and creating the pandemic response group was phenomenal. And then the next administration destroyed all of that. And 2018 closed down the pandemic response team. 2019 jettisoned the U.S. aid program, where we had scientists stationed all over the world in all these countries. And when they got wind of an outbreak of bird flu or an unknown virus, they went and they took care of it like that. Oh, you know what we're going to do? Your chickens have a disease in it. We're going to torch them all, and I'm going to pay you, little farmer, for all those chickens. Sorry about that. We got to stop this disease where it happens. And in October 2019, the Trump administration closed that program, and 3 weeks later, COVID, right? Like the one group who had successfully for 20 years had stamped out potential novel virus pandemics all over the world. That program was closed, and it cost us like $30 million a year. And the big reason why they closed the pandemic response team and they closed that U.S. aid program was because they had to pay for the giant tax breaks they passed in January 2018. And if you look at the Dow, it passed these huge tax breaks, and the market did this for like a year and a half. It did not grow. It didn't do shit. And they started to cut practical programs in order to help fund those tax cuts. And those tax cuts went to really rich people. And, there's a certain mentality of cutting a program to save money and then it biting you in the ass later. Right now, Russia is facing that on maintenance of their military vehicles. They're like, oh, it costs a lot of money to rotate tires and to check seals on trucks. We just avoid that, save money. Boom, their entire military is just like falling apart out in the middle of these mud tracks. In 2004, the federal government was going to cost them like $30 million to retrofit levees around New Orleans. The Army Corps of Engineers was like, yeah, it's going to cost us like $40 million, $30 million. And the federal government was like, no, we don't want to spend that kind of money. 2005, Katrina hits, caused $500 billion in damage. So in order to save $40 million, it cost us $500 billion as the result of the outfall. In order to save $30 million on this one little program that stopped outbreaks before they happened, it cost us, right now, probably at 30 trillion, right? So to save $30 million cost us $30 trillion in the end. Oh, a quart of oil is too expensive right now. I'm not going to top off my engine. Engine explodes. Okay, well, now it's going to cost me $10,000. There's a certain benefit to to doing your maintenance. And when you cut maintenance costs, it costs you so much more in the end. The ferry system here in Seattle, fuel prices got high. This dickbag named Tim Eyman got all these anti-tax measures put into place, and all of a sudden the state highways department, the Department of Transportation, didn't have the money to do proper maintenance on the ferries. And you have expensive oil prices, you got ferries that cost money to run. And so what the ferries did, they're like, okay, we're going to slow the ferries down a bit, and rather than running these I have to describe how the ferries work. So the ferries are diesel-electric hybrids. You have a big diesel engine that basically powers a generator, and then you have 3 or 4 electric motors that do propellers on either end of the ferry. And so what they did was, they're like, oh crap, this is expensive. We need to go from using 3 motors all the time to go back and forth with a spare just in case one of them breaks, to we will do 2 motors and we'll just swap which ones are on and off, and that will it'll spread out wear and tear across the whole thing. The problem was that the electrical system designed by Siemens was not designed to shut motors off and on constantly. It was designed to have 3 of them going constantly at all times and then a 4th as a backup. And so it fried the electronics on these ferries and ended up costing, $20 million to fix. So it saved them $3 million in fuel and maintenance, and then ended up costing them $20 million to fix the problem that $3 million in savings had. So we can't afford to return to a world before all of this, because we need to learn to maintain our toys. That's the moral of the story. Freddy Fairburger, probably hippie. At least fun though, definitely a sketch. All right, I'll check them out. Meow Meow. Ever heard of the Elvis and Jesus similarities? They're hilarious yet eerily creepy. They take it serious south Mason-Dixon line. No, I have not heard that. I had a friend who was kind of an artist, and she liked to do kind of weird guerrilla art projects. And so she said, dress up in a suit and tie as Mormon evangelical looking as possible and meet me in Seattle. And I was like, all right, that sounds weird. So I met her, and we went to the fancy hip neighborhood, Capitol Hill, and we passed out flyers. She looked like she was right out of Bible school. We passed out all these little flyers, and it was like, praise to our Savior, our Lord and Savior. And then people were like, oh, they look at it, and then they start reading it, and it was all about Buddy Holly and how he died for your sins. So maybe it's something similar to that. But we ended up brightening a lot of days, while also making people go, oh, geez, these religious fanatics are bothering me. It was brilliant. It was funny. I like weird stuff like that. Okay. Man, so for doing a makeup show, we're having a good time here today, aren't we, little monkey dog? Yeah? Or are you just a little tired dog? You have such a hard day of just doing nothing but sleep all day? It's a rough one, isn't it? Oh, I know. Stretch it out, buddy. Stretch it out. Oh, no one can quite see all the monkey dog. I don't have the camera right. There we go. There's our little buddy. I wonder if... Gotta turn that one down just a smidge. Get your full... Oh, there's the monkey dog. That's who we know and love, right? There you are. You're in there. You're zoomed in. Okay. A cockroach rancher, if what was said about Trump and Russia was true, why do you think Putin didn't invade when he and his buddy Trump in office? I think a large part of it is that Trump was supposed to get rid of NATO. I think that was what Trump was told to do. He was supposed to make NATO so unappealing for anyone to join, and for the U.S. to be like, oh, we're just getting out of here. Putin had diverted forces to along the borders of Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania. He just put huge amounts of forces there. And I think he was waiting for Trump to basically close NATO. And the uproar of the rest of the elected officials were like, you are not going to do that, kind of put Putin's plans of invasion on hold, because he wants those 3 former Soviet states back. And he's really pissed off that he can't have them. and he's even more pissed off that they joined NATO back in the 90s before he had any power. And so he wants NATO gone. And I think that's a large reason why, is that they diverted from Ukraine to go up to these places where they could do an invasion of what were NATO countries. And when Congress and the rest of the world was like, yeah, no, NATO is going to exist in perpetuity, he had to go back to the drawing board and put the forces back down in Ukraine again. That just takes time. Okay. Dino C. Houston, do you think DOJ will put Hedges in jail or nothing will come of this? I think there's a good chance Hedges will go to jail simply because they stole money from rich people. They aren't. Yeah, they're affecting our poor people, our bottom line. But if hedge funds get vaporized, the billionaires who invest in those hedge funds get vaporized along with it, and you don't steal from rich people. We can all idolize Robin Hood, but you don't steal from rich people and get away with it, which is why Bernie Madoff died in prison, because he stole from rich people. Meow meow. Jesus' countenance was like lightning in his raiment, white as snow. Elvis wore snow white jumpsuits and lightning bolts. Bam! Elvis was Jesus reborn. And then Elvis sacrificed himself while on the toilet with a deep fat fried Elvis in his lap. What a way to go. I mean, you may as well die in the toilet, because you all know you shit yourselves when you die. You lose control of your bowels. So you might as well do it on the toilet. It's like the most respectful place you can die is on the toilet. It's got its own little floor drain right there. I can't imagine a more appropriate and responsible place to die than on the toilet. There's your second intro. I gotta scroll for 10 feet to get past people making fun of me. Let's get to. Sorry, I'm scrolling here. I'm still like an hour and 10 minutes behind, but there's a lot of repeat questions I gotta go past here that I think I've answered already. Ravi Cohen, isn't that how balance sheets are made? Assets always do equal liabilities. Yes, but you'd think liabilities would be a lot more for a big financial institution that has access to margin, right? So liabilities would be a lot more than that, or so I assume. I mean, if you're a homeowner, right, you're making $50,000 a year, but you have a $400,000 mortgage, you got $400,000 in liabilities right there, against whatever equity or assets you have. So no, it doesn't always act. There's always some sort of margin. There's always some sort of something that's off balance. And having only $6,000 in cash on hand is a very strange report from a huge financial institution like Susquehanna. Very weird. Very weird. Like, I want to call up like, hey, how much cash? I need you to buy me a 2007 Mazda 3. And they'd be like, I don't have the money to do that right now. It's very weird for a big institution like that. How do they make payroll with only $6,000 in cash on hand? How do they pay rent on an office building that they pay $100,000 a month in rent for their floors of the office? But I don't get how they only have $6,000 in cash on hand. It's very weird. Project Sun, Houston, remember that wild Russian rocket malfunction that created a massive spiral over Norway? That thing was cool. If you guys never saw it, rocket spiral Norway. Oh, or what? It was really cool. If you guys haven't seen that one, I highly recommend it. Hope it doesn't play music and I get dinged on this. I'm gonna mute it. That's what we'll do. Or you muted. Okay. Go away, ad. No one cares about you. Leave me alone. And news report. Just show the rocket. Just show me the rocket. Show the rocket. There it is. So the rocket got stuck up there and basically was doing loop-de-loops up in the sky. And it's really cool looking. How awesome is that? Uh-oh. Whoops. Whee! Woohoo! Looks like a barred spiral galaxy. Cool stuff. I love it. And let's get out of this YouTube zone we're in. Okay. S3, give me 1 billion and I'd make 10 billion with reckless abandon. Exactly. Hey, right now with your 1 billion, you can get 30 billion out of it if you are a hedge fund or a family fund. That 30-to-1 liability ratio is absolutely insane. They won't let banks have more than 10-to-1. Why should other folks get 30-to-1? It is just mind-boggling that you can have 10 billion in assets and owe $300 billion. Just absolutely crazy to me that we allow that to happen. Those numbers are just stupid. I think that we will see changes in that in the future. When this thing all comes crashing down, you won't see 30-to-1 anymore. You might see something like 5-to-1, if that. And that's what hedge funds and family funds will be allowed to play with. And then 30-to-1 is just such a huge number. And if you are a crypto, you're dealing in crypto, you don't have 30-to-1. You have 100-to-1 margin. So if you are a crypto market maker or anyone else, 100-to-1 can be your margin on doing crypto plays. So basically, you can take solid assets of X number of dollars, over leverage them for unregulated, volatile assets that are often parts of Ponzi schemes, rug pulls, and just upright fraud. That is mind-blowing. Just does not make any sense to me that is allowed, man. Okay. Okay. Oh, looks like the video spammers got into the chat here. Thank you for taking care of that, folks. I never see those guys. Okay. Okay. Did you guys get notice that what's the name of that group? Shit. The NATO it got posted in my Fidelity News here. Global Newswire. Pomerantz law firm finally filed their class action lawsuit against Metamaterials, and in their press release, they really don't have an argument. It's really phenomenal. They're like, well, they announced that there was a subpoena related to the merger between Torchlight and Metamaterials, so we're suing them. Almost everyone who's dealing with short selling has had a subpoena from the SEC, because the SEC is investigating short sellers, right? AMC got that subpoena. GME got that subpoena. Metamaterials got that subpoena. They all got those subpoenas because all of them were heavily shorted by short hedge funds, who they announced are currently under investigation for colluding in their naked short selling. So Pomerantz is totally just trying to seek some sort of settlement or something. Oh, did you get your toy again? Did you get it? Oh, did you want? What did you get? You little buddy? Hey, come here, get your little buddy. There you go. Yeah. Gotta feel. Somehow Monkey got. I think her cam got. There we go. Yeah. All right. Play with your buddy. I think Pomerantz is hoping that this keeps crashing the stock price for Kerrisdale, which appears to have worked. I mean, when they started their complaints and saying they're going to, go after him, the stock price was like $4 a share, and now it's down to $1.40, and Kerrisdale's like, yes, hammer them more. They're just doing their bidding. They did the same thing to CEI, and they're doing what they're doing now. It's totally bogus. Okay. What I'm going to do, and I'm so sorry if I missed your chats in the middle of the show portion here, I'm going to try and scroll down towards the bottom and get some of the folks here at the end who I know are definitely watching that, because I can't guarantee the folks that are like an hour ago are still with us. Then I'd be like, that guy's not answering my question. I'm out of here. Okay. Yeah, BW brand. Mercedes, Volkswagen, and BMW told all dealers they should start using synthetic oil. Some dealers didn't, unless the customer demanded it. This caused 100,000 engines to sludge and need repairs. Yeah, you got to pay for maintenance. It may suck at the time, but you know what? It's much cheaper to go get a mammogram and find out if you've got cancer than it is to wait until all the effects of cancer make an appearance. Being proactive about stuff saves time and money and lives, and you just got to do it. You check the air pressure, make sure there's no dry rot in your tires. Look at the seals around the window of your house. Clean out the chimney once a year, because tar builds up and cause a fire that could burn your house down. You got to pay for these little bits of maintenance to save the giant headache that will happen later. And if you neglect maintenance, oftentimes your insurance company go, yeah, you neglected maintenance, I'm not paying for that. So those are the little things you got to do to keep your nice things. Do your laundry, fold your clothes, and put them away. There you go. Okay. BXS with your newest tweet on the GME survey results, over 800 million shares owned by American investors. Yes. That is given also. So Get-It-Got's surveys are pretty decent, and he does calculate in the fact that it's an online survey. He tries to make it as scientific as possible. Compares it with old data. Did control study with Apple computers and reported that, and found it was pretty online with like the amount of stock that Apple trades. So I have high confidence in that realm in which the numbers could possibly be low or high on that spectrum. And it fits with the volume we see and the number of investors there are, and I think it's very possible. Yeah, 1.4 billion shares sold. Is there a squeaker in there? I didn't even know there was a squeaker in there. Oh boy, huh? You got a squeaker. That's so exciting. I'm fairly confident that 1 billion plus shares out there. And in last March, I did DD, and we're figuring that there's maybe 700 million to a billion shares. So it makes sense that over time they generated more, especially since they're hammering the price down, which means that they generate more naked shares to do that. That especially, FTDs going into this month are probably going to be pretty insane as a result of all that shorting they did in January. I think it's pretty on point. I think it's pretty on point. Okay. There's a kitty cat. All right. Okay. Jersey got some points for me. Drag and drop street view. Man on this location. Okay. It's a good street view one. I'm all about it. Let's see what we got. Turn on that. Shabam, shabam, shabam. Okay. We are in China? Street view. In the forest? Is there no one here? We're in the forest. I don't know if there's a street view out here, Jersey. Where'd you send me? Where'd you send me, man? Oh, wait. Oh, nope, there we go. Gorgeous. Got our limestone columns here. This is, I forget what they call this place. This is out in Sichuan, isn't it? There's all these limestone columns. What is this place called? It's gorgeous out here. I forget what is this place called? Oh, now it's being destroyed. That thing is being destroyed right now by Monkey. Yeah, this place. This is Zhengzhiji in China. That's where we are. Zhengzhiji. It's gorgeous. Oh, yep. Her buddy's being destroyed now. That creature is not long for this world. You are absolutely obliterating. You're obliterating it, aren't you? Why don't you show everyone how you're obliterating it, huh? Why don't you bring it over here? Come over here. Come over here. Show everybody. There you go. Yeah, everyone can see you just absolutely yeah, the ear's gone. That poor little buddy is not gonna have much fuzz left in it soon. Yep, it has to be absolutely dissected like a frog in 7th grade biology class. Madman in balloon. Wait, did I miss that part? Madman in balloon. I don't see a balloon. Is there a balloon? Oh, is it the picture of a man, like from a balloon? Where is this being done? Oh, what's going on, man? Madman in a balloon or drone. All right. I don't know. I don't see a balloon, but I do see a cool little temple off in the distance on that thing. Whoa, we got some bots in here. Looks like Bee's Knees is getting deleted there. I don't know what Bee's Knees is saying. Houston, who is the most famous person in your phone? Did you inhale something you shouldn't? Let's see. Your most famous person in my phone. Ben Shepherd from Soundgarden. Elizabeth Mitchell from Lost is in there. Who else? John Perkins, the author John Perkins, or author Johnny Evison. He's in there. It might be it. Jack Olson passed away, so he wouldn't count anymore. There's quite a few big time authors that live in my community, so I don't know if they really count. I mean, they're authors, right? They're bestsellers. Those might be. Could those be it? Oh, you already got some fuzz out, didn't you? Look at you and your little fuzz thing. Yeah, you're gonna eat some more of that plastic? Yeah, try and inhale it. That might be it. I mean, there's a couple of when I was trying to have Get Your Rocks Off of Houston, my geology show, which, you know, it's still my dream to like get paid to travel and talk about rocks. So every day this YouTube channel happens and I get, you know, thousands of views from you folks, makes it just one step closer to possibly being able to do a science television show where I travel the world and show people cool shit. But I do have a few like producers that were at one time cared about me in my phone, but it's a very incestuous world, very incestuous like industry where they move from place to place. So I don't even know if those numbers still even work anymore, but we'll try. I'm gonna try and go back to the Banff World Media Festival this summer and see if we can get another sale for Get Your Rocks Off of Houston, and we can do some geology stuff. Sky Ellis, there's Sky Ellis. So I missed your thing when it said, Houston, what is your thought on Nazi Azov Battalion, Ukraine Army? You said truckers in Canada were all Nazis because Nazis were there and they didn't punch them in the face. The Azov Battalion, I think, would be wonderful if the Azov Battalion were sacrificed in the name of protecting the people of Ukraine. If the Azov Battalion was the cost we had to pay, fantastic. At the same time, Putin is the largest financier of right-wing hate groups around the world. He would host a conference every year in Moscow where all of these right-wing white supremacist Nazi groups would come and hang out and high-five and trade information. And the folks that control the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine are run by actual Nazis in the Russian government. And those folks have chased away all the Jews that were living there. The Wagner Group, which is a Russian paramilitary mercenary organization, is run by a Nazi man who's got SS tattoos on his shoulders, and they're being sent in by the Russian government to do damage. So, yeah, there are right wing factions in Ukraine. That's no doubt about it. There are very far right. There has been since before World War II. There were far right nationalists, Nazi associated nationalists in Ukraine that were, trying to assassinate Polish dignitaries, and they're part of kill squads for the Nazis. But at the same time, the fifth largest Jewish population in the world lives in Ukraine. The largest Jewish religious institution, Chabad, is based in Ukraine. The country is run by a Jew who lost their family to the Nazis. I think, United States is not a Nazi country, but almost every militia in the United States has Nazi ties. So that's what militias do. They're a bunch of crazy assholes, and they're going to do what they do. And that I think it's very important to defeat Russia and wipe out the Azov Battalion at the same time. You can do both. Okay. Mike Mills, Ebola crisis in the United States has become an anchor threatening to sink Obama presidency, already under fire from critics who saw the federal response to the outbreak as disorganized and timid. Was that headline from back when that happened? Oh, webcams. Oh, all right, dude. Webcam hot girls report. There we go. Explicit material. We're gonna report that. Thank you so much. All right. Goodbye, webcams. Okay. Beverly asked my dog chews the eyes off all my toys first. It's a little weird to watch. Yeah, she dismantles. She does the ears, and then she'll do like the legs and arms, and then she'll go for the eyes and nose and those things. So we got a one-eared little buddy right now happening. Poor little guy, lost its ear already. But this has lasted so much longer than she's ever had another toy. This dog has eyebrows. That's crazy. So it's got eyeballs and eyebrows to rip off. That's what you got, monkey. Eyeballs and eyebrows. Oh, murder. Yes, kill. Must die. Okay. I'm going to go a couple minutes longer. We're past the 2 hours here, which is a lot. And the cedar pollen is just murdering my throat right now. The trees are just jizzing on everything. It sucks. Okay. I'm going to scroll up, see if we got any new... oh, yeah, murder. Here, certificate of death. There you go. Okay, so Robert was asking a question. Robert Carter, do you see China blowing up buildings all at once? You're talking about the Tofu Deng projects? Like those weird, crappy constructions that were done just to... I mean, it's like crypto, basically. Like, yeah, you can buy a condo and it's worth money out here. But really it's just a concrete shell with no reinforcement that no one could ever live in. They're gonna have to destroy all those things. They're in the way of progress. And China's gonna have to do something about the Tofu Deng projects in general and that type of construction, because it moved from building these fake cities into actual like homes people live in that are made with substandard materials and the life savings of these folks go into these homes. They don't have access to mortgages like you and I. They have to come up. They go to their family members. They accrue as much cash as they can from all of them, and they buy these things. And their entire net worth is tied into these apartments or homes. And then they're just made of putty. So I foresee China being involved in more rigorous building codes happening, especially if there is an earthquake, natural disaster in one of these regions where they have a bunch of tofu dang projects and just apartment blocks go collapsing down. The most deadly earthquake in human history was in China in the 70s, I believe. Oh wait, in Shaanxi, China, there was an earthquake that killed 830,000 people. Can you imagine that? Just 1 million dead from an earthquake. Absolutely bonkers. But there was one in the 70s, yeah, in Tongshan, China, that killed 300,000 people. So Tongshan, let's find out how big Tongshan is right now. Control the population. So there's 3.6 million people who live there right now. It's in Hebei province. The population is growing at 4% a year or so. Oh no, sorry, 2023 is projected to be at 3.8 million. So if these tofu dang projects are all over some place like Tongshan, and you have an earthquake that in the 70s killed 300,000 people, how many people are going to die in 40-story apartment blocks, right? Let's see what Tongshan looks like. Let's look at Tongshan images. Tongshan, yeah, so you have tall buildings in Tongshan, 30, 40 floors tall. It looks modern, it looks nice, but if these buildings are not built to code, that's going to kill everyone. I mean, yeah. So this Tongshan of 40 years ago when the earthquake happened, it's Tongshan today. So if none of these buildings are built to withstand earthquakes, those folks are just dead. Just boom, 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 boom. Every single one of these things is going to collapse down. So those tofu dang projects are just gnarly. You can look them up on YouTube, just like tofu dang videos, and they'll show people like reaching into a concrete wall and just peeling away the concrete wall. Cutting corners is a great tradition of contractors in China. They're like if they can just paint over like a paper wall, make it look like it's concrete, they'll do that if they can get away with it because they got your money. They don't care, and they're not going to come back. They're not going to fix anything. Oh god, my throat is so sore right now. Okay. BW Brand, my cat played the same little mouse for over 20 years. Had an electric chirper inside that never needed battery replacement. Lithium cell. I had a friend growing up, and his dog had this little, I think it was Pluto from Disney, and she loved it. And that dog lived like 20 years. Just had this little Pluto. She would just carry with her everywhere, and she just loved it, and it never got destroyed. And Monkey Butt has never had a toy that didn't end up in absolute pieces. The first toy I ever got her when I adopted her was this blue and orange rope, like a big thick rope with knots on the end and little frilly bits. And within a day, she had like de-threaded that entire thing, and it's just this fluff of fur. Like there's nothing left of the rope. And about 2-3 years later, she's in the backyard playing her all. She just stops. She's like, and this orange thread goes boink out of her nose, and it was one of those threads from that rope from like 3 years earlier. So, that thing was rattling around her sinuses for I'm making fun of you for who knows how long. Dogs are weird. Okay. Humps all stuffed dog toys. Oh, my mom's old Shih Tzu had this bed, and we call his girlfriend, and she was definitely abused. He would throw it all over the house and beat it up and then just hump the shit out of it. Dogs are goofy. Nevitz0974 Houston, is that guy that created Ethereum Russian? He has spoken out. Has he spoken out about a war? Do you think he's in line with Putin? I've often wondered that because a lot of Russian technology basically gets taken over by the Kremlin. So you think about like Kaspersky software, like they create all these antivirus programs and everything. Kaspersky was a legit company that wanted to do good and do well, and they got taken over by the Russians, and then the software became the avenue of which bad programs were disseminated around the world to lots of computers. I'd be curious to see what type of Kremlin connections there are with Ethereum. I'll have to look that up. But I think he lives in Canada, doesn't he? The guy that invented Ethereum, doesn't he live in Canada now? I think that's where he is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for the day. So that's all I got in me. I'm kind of hungry. I want to eat some food. And you look like you need to go for a walk before the sun sets, because we're almost after dark territory. So I think we're going to do that. I'll see you guys Monday. I can definitely do a show Monday. I might be doing a show with Cosmic Lightning Warrior on Monday as well for an hour or so. We're going to figure out when. After that, I don't know what my week holds for me, because my mom gets out of the hospital Tuesday evening from her hip surgery that she gets on Monday. And I got to hang out with her and make sure, because you have a new hip and you got a big giant slice in your leg. It's hard to move around and eat and do all those things. So I'm going to be taking care of her next week. So if I can do shows, it might be like short ones while she's napping or something. So we'll see when I can do those. It'll probably be from my laptop back at her house. So don't expect monkey cams or anything else, because I'm not going to have that technology to do that. All right. So here we go. Ready, monkey? Come here. Everyone wants to see you. Come on up. We're going to sit right here. Say goodbye to everyone. Have a good day. Smell my breath. Yes. Bye-bye. Oh, you're a good dog. Yes, you are. You're a good dog. You're such a good dog.